In fantasy football, the key when drafting is to get that diamond in the rough player that nobody is looking for, the one that gets overlooked and passed on. In today's video, I'm not going to tell you how to get those kinds of players, but I will help you identify what players to stay away from. These are my 5 players you are drafting way too soon in fantasy football. My name is Turtle, this is Outlier Fantasy, and it's fantasy football season. I gotta lock in. It's grind time. Starting off this beautiful list right off the bat, the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver Drake London, who's ranked the wide receiver 10 on Underdog. Drake London is a great wide receiver who's had over 110 targets in each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL. With all that high praise out of the way, despite all of that, Drake London being drafted as the wide receiver 10 is still a tough campaign to get behind, especially when he's not even the best positional player on his team, which would be Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson is most likely going to be the first point of attack for the Atlanta Falcons offense in 2024. And if you're drafting Drake London at wide receiver 10, in order to get this value to pan out for you, you need everything in this 2024 season to go perfect for you. You need clean breaks across the board. You're going to need Drake London to again stay healthy over a course of a full season. You're going to need Kirk Cousins to return from season-ending injury and deliver just as good as he was in the beginning of 2023. And 110 targets is not going to cut it for the 10th best wide receiver in fantasy. You're going to want to see Drake London's targets increase to even like 125 in order for this wide receiver 10 pick to truly pan out at its capital. And again, it's not that I'm not so bought in on the talent of Drake London. I personally think he's a phenomenal wide receiver. However, this pick, this ADP slot this year at wide receiver 10 feels an awful lot like last year's situation in 2023 where we were reaching a little too far on Chris Olave. Now, I don't know how many viewers actually had shares of Chris Olave last season, but I can tell you that it was not pretty if you were a Chris Olave fantasy owner last season because you took your second round pick and you thought Chris Olave would make that next jump, and unfortunately his ADP was just a little too high for it to feel like something panned out. And that's how I feel that Drake London's 2024 season will go. He will dominate and he will put together a great season, but to use a early second round pick on a player with these kinds of question marks where we don't know if he's the best player on his team, we don't know how good his quarterback is going to be coming off of an injury like this. It's not impossible, obviously, that Kirk Cousins could come back and be phenomenal, but we don't know if that's something that we can expect. And we don't know if his targets are going to go up in 2024 either. There's obviously no Arthur Smith this year. It's going to look like a different offense, but are we going to see him tap out and get that 130, 140 targets this season? To be determined. The next player on the you are taking these players way too early in fantasy drafts is the running back 5, Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts. And now, this is a unique situation where he is closer to the first 4 running backs ranked ahead of him than the next 4 running backs ranked after him. But that drop-off from the 4th guy to Taylor is a bit steep. And then following that drop-off from 5 to 6 and 6 to 7 gets even steeper. But then it comes kind of to a halt right before we get to RB9 and RB10, where RB10 now is Travis Etienne, still a solid running back. And Taylor finds himself here at RB5 overall, sheerly just off of his athleticism and talent. However, with Anthony Richardson being back into the Colts offense and his potential to vulture away touchdowns like he was before he got injured in 2023, this could affect how well of an output you get out of Jonathan Taylor. I obviously wouldn't wish injuries on anyone, but you would almost feel more comfortable as a Jonathan Taylor owner if there wasn't Anthony Richardson, because then you don't have to worry about the goal line touches. But then who knows, maybe that puts Jonathan Taylor in a situation like he's the second RB off the board then, if we know that kind of goal line work is being taken from him. So there's obviously a reason why he's at RB5 and not any higher. But the idea of taking away the most important points, those 1-yard carries, and giving it to the quarterback, that's dangerous in a top pick. That's something I would call ill-advised, and that is why I think Jonathan Taylor is being drafted a little too high. Let's keep the trend going with running backs, and we're going to trickle down just right now to the RB7, and that's Devon Achane. Now, this player, Achane, could make the list of players being drafted too early, just sheerly off the fact that Raheem Mostert is a much better value in fantasy drafts, but I'm not here to make that argument because that's just a little too obvious. Achane, as we know, has otherworldly speed and is a sight to see in the open field. But it's probably more likely that you won't see that incredible 2023 fantasy run carry over this year into 2024. To put into perspective of what Achane did, he had 11 touchdowns total in 11 games. That is phenomenal. But at his current price of RB7, if he misses any time like he did last year, that RB7 price tag that you put on him automatically goes out the window as too much. Not to mention the fact that there is no 100% guarantee that he will win the backfield over Raheem Mostert this season. Now, you could probably bet on that to be the case, but when that will happen and how that will happen, none of us have any idea of that. And even if he does end up winning the starting job tomorrow, let's just say, you need everything to go right and have that, 1 touchdown per game average for this pick to pan out. And I really don't believe that that's something we can bet on happening again in 2024. The next player on this list, trying to mix up the pot, try to get different positions in there for everyone so that there's a good balance here. And that next player is CJ Stroud, who is being drafted way too early at the QB6. CJ Stroud's rookie season last year in 2023 was absolutely amazing. And now that they've added even more weapons to the Houston Texans offense, why would I advise you not taking CJ Stroud at QB6? Well, as good of a rookie season that CJ Stroud had, and we all can acknowledge that it was a fantastic season last year, he finished as the QB11 in fantasy, which isn't really something to brag about. But now, instead of a rookie that we have no expectations on in a offense we have no expectation to be any good in the Houston Texans last year, now adding expectation of finishing as a top 7, top 8 quarterback, that upper echelon QB1 tier, it's going to feel a little disappointing if he finishes again around QB10, QB9, or even QB11 again. By taking a quarterback early in the draft, generally speaking, this is nothing to do with CJ Stroud personally. You're going to get better value on the positional players, and you can just wait back and get a quarterback who's just as productive in the later rounds. Last season, if I were to take the QB that finished 6th in fantasy points, which is Brock Purdy, and I take CJ Stroud, who I just mentioned finished at 11th, the difference between those two scoring per week is half of a point. Now, I know all of you out there cry that you lose by half a point or by 1 yard all the time. That's nonsense. You and I both know damn well that you're losing games by 20 or more points because your team was just flat out bad that week. And while, yes, the name of the game is to score more points, that half point per game is not going to kill you, especially if you can get a wide receiver or a running back that maybe instead of averaging half a point more if you waited back and took one later, maybe you could take one earlier at the running back or wide receiver position and end up with a whole point per game more. So if you're going to worry about that half point, I'm going to give you another half point back if you just take somebody who's not a quarterback sooner. If you draft CJ Stroud this year at QB6, you're leaving on the board players like DeAndre Hopkins or Kenneth Walker if you need a running back still in the draft, or Rashee Rice, who plays on the Kansas City Chiefs. There are plenty of options if you don't want to take a quarterback early. And then what? Tua Tagovailoa is there for you at the end of the draft. Oh no, I still have a productive quarterback. Oh no. That's enough ranting for me. On to the final player on this list. For the fifth player, you are drafting Marvin Harrison Jr. way too early at wide receiver 9. I get it. We all want to be the first to the new trend, the first to the newest thing. We all want to buy cryptocurrency and get really rich and never have to work a job again. But that's just not how life works. If you invest your, let's just say, a second round pick, you spend this second round pick on a shiny new car, you're only getting a shiny new car. This car might not get you as far as all the other cars could get you in this draft, but damn it, you got the shiny car, so congrats. Now, what does that mean in terms of fantasy points? Nothing. If I pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. with my second round pick, hear me out. If I pass on him, I can still elect to take a high-end running back in round 2, like a Saquon Barkley. If you don't like Saquon Barkley, maybe I elect to go Derrick Henry then, fine. Or maybe you like Josh Jacobs more or somebody else. That's cool too. I'm not going to judge you. By taking one of those running backs, I'm still going to get a stud receiver in the third round like DJ Moore. Whereas I take Marvin Harrison Jr. with the second round pick. Now, how do I know who I'm going to be left with in the third round for a running back if I don't even know who my first round pick is? Did I go running back? Did I not? Now, as if I take Marvin and I need that running back, if I'm waiting for my snake draft pick to come back to me, if I don't get, like the Isaiah Pacheco or the Travis Etienne, then I don't have any option. By passing on the shiny new car in this 2024 draft, Marvin Harrison Jr., I could elect to build a better team, and I can stay flexible in the draft. If I need to go grab a different position, I can afford to do that. If I lock myself in that I'm going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. with my second round pick, I better hope that there was a first round running back for me, or I better hope that round 3 comes back around and I can get my Isaiah Pacheco or Travis Etienne, or else plan's ruined. But to run it back and summarize it back up for you guys, the 5 players you are drafting way too early are Drake London, Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, CJ Stroud, and Marvin Harrison Jr. Those are the 5. If you haven't clicked off the video by now, God bless. Just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, if you thought I was amusing somehow, some way, you could throw the like button. You could smash that, whatever the cool kids call that these days. If you're new here and you like the content, you like fantasy football, only makes sense to subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Turtle. I'm signing out. Peace.